They say the universe was spoken into being, but what if it was drawn? Long before words, before scripture, before even the first myths were told, there were shapes, circles, triangles, spirals, etched in stone, carved into temples, woven into mandalas, not as decoration but as codes. From Egyptian tombs to Tibetan scrolls, from Greek philosophers to Mayan priests, sacred geometry was seen as a divine language, a blueprint of creation, a map of the soul. But what do these ancient forms really mean? Why did cultures who never met speak the same visual language? And what are these patterns still trying to tell us? In this video, we'll decode the geometry hidden inside humanity's oldest myths and discover how these timeless forms still shape our beliefs, our psyche, and maybe even our destiny. If you're drawn to ancient wisdom and feel there's something deeper behind the symbols, you're in the right place. This is Beyond Mythology. To the ancients, geometry wasn't abstract, it was divine. They saw shape as language, number as vibration, and form as a bridge between heaven and earth. Sacred geometry refers to patterns and proportions that were believed to reveal the underlying structure of the cosmos. These weren't just tools for building temples, they were blueprints of meaning. Across civilizations, the same archetypal forms kept appearing: the circle, eternity; the spiral, evolution; the triangle, the divine; the square, the earth; the hexagon, harmony. They're not human inventions. We find them in snowflakes, pine cones, flower petals, seashells, hurricanes, galaxies, and even the spiral of our DNA. Patterns like the Fibonacci sequence whispered through the design of life itself. To ancient minds, this wasn't coincidence, it was communication. In Egypt, geometry aligned temples with the stars. In Greece, Pythagoras saw harmony in ratios. In India, sacred diagrams called yantras mapped the inner self. In Islamic art, infinite mosaics mirrored the formless divine. These forms weren't just symbols, they were maps of the world, the soul, and the sacred. And while modern science explains patterns through physics and biology, the ancients believed something deeper, that the universe wasn't just made of matter, but meaning. Geometry to them was not a subject, it was a revelation. Hidden on the granite columns of Abydos, Egypt, is one of the most mysterious symbols of antiquity, the flower of life. A perfect web of interlocking circles, drawn with impossible precision, long before modern tools. But its mystery runs deeper than its shape. Within it lies a geometry that echoes through myths, symbols, and even creation itself. At its center, the seed of life, a pattern that unfolds in six-fold symmetry, like the petals of a flower, or the stages of cosmic birth. And from it, a cascade, the tree of life, Metatron's cube, the platonic solids, all hidden inside. This symbol wasn't decorative, it was a diagram, a map of unfolding, a sacred code. Across ancient mythologies, the universe often begins with an egg, a single enclosed origin. In Hinduism, it's Hiranyagarbha, the golden womb that births the cosmos. In Orphic Greece, the primal god Phanes hatches from the cosmic egg, shining light into chaos. In Egypt, the sun god Ra emerges from a lotus that blooms atop the egg of creation. Now look again at the flower of life. It starts with a point, then a circle, then two, the Vesica Piscis. From there, the pattern multiplies, like a divine cell dividing, forming life, forming cosmos. The ancients weren't just telling stories, they were encoding them in geometry. Creation wasn't only mythic, it was mathematical. And in that pattern, we find something profound. Not only how the universe begins, but how it becomes. In sacred geometry, shape is never just shape. It's meaning, encoded. And three of these forms appear again and again across myths, temples, and visions: the circle, the triangle, the square. Let's begin with the circle, the mother of all symbols. No beginning, no end, a perfect loop. It represents eternity, unity, the divine feminine, and the cosmic womb from which all things emerge. It's the shape of the sun, of mandalas, of halos around saints and bodhisattvas. In myths, it often marks the sacred, a protected space, a mirror of the heavens. The triangle, with its 3 sides and 3 points, holds immense power. It's the number of the divine across cultures. The Egyptian triad of Osiris, Isis, and Horus. The Trimurti of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. The Christian Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Its upward point represents fire, the masculine, the spiritual ascent. Inverted, it becomes water, the feminine, the descent into mystery. Combined, they form the hexagram, a union of opposites, heaven and earth intertwined. Then comes the square, the most stable, grounded form. 4 sides, 4 directions, 4 elements, 4 seasons. It symbolizes structure, order, the material world, the realm we live in. Temples across cultures, from the ziggurats of Mesopotamia to the mandalas of Tibet, often begin with a square base. The square anchors the sacred to the earth. But these shapes don't exist in isolation. The ancients combined them, in architecture, in diagrams, in initiation rituals, to represent the full journey of existence, from wholeness, the circle, through transformation, the triangle, into embodiment, the square. Geometry became not just a symbol of life, but the path itself. Ancient temples weren't just places of worship. They were machines of meaning, built with purpose, proportion, and profound intent. In Egypt, the Temple of Karnak wasn't randomly designed. Its dimensions mirrored the solar path, aligning with solstices, mapping time through sacred architecture. Each chamber was a step, not just spatial but spiritual, a journey in stone. In India, the principles of Vastu Shastra dictated how a space should align with cosmic forces, the Earth's energy, planetary influence, even directional flow. Temples weren't simply buildings, they were living blueprints of the universe, and in the East, mandalas served as sacred maps of the soul, layer by layer from the outer world to the center, the still point of divinity. Constructed with sand, painted in scrolls, or visualized in deep meditation. They weren't just art, they were gateways. In Mesoamerica, cities like Teotihuacan were built with cosmic precision. Pyramids aligned with Venus, streets charted like celestial calendars, turning the entire city into a sacred diagram. All these places, Karnak, Angkor Wat, the Parthenon, Borobudur, followed the same logic. Geometry as language, space as story, form as myth. To walk through these structures was to move through a cosmic narrative. Each column, each curve, each alignment carried meaning. They weren't just reflections of belief, they were tools of transformation, and they all echoed the same truth. Geometry wasn't decoration, it was revelation. Among all sacred shapes, none feels more alive than the spiral. It's in galaxies, hurricanes, seashells, pine cones, fingerprints, DNA. It spins through the natural world like a hidden rhythm, a cosmic breath. But it's not just physical. In myth, the spiral is the path of the soul. The Celts carved spirals into stone as symbols of life, death, and rebirth, the eternal cycle. In Hinduism, it mirrors Kundalini energy rising through the chakras, awakening inner divinity. The labyrinth of Greek myth wasn't a trap, it was an initiation, a spiral of descent, challenge, and return. The Maya believed time itself moved in spirals, not lines, looping through cycles of creation. Some ancient mystics saw the spiral as the unfolding of the cosmos, creation itself, forever expanding from a silent center. And in psychology, Carl Jung saw the spiral as the motion of the psyche, a return to the same themes, but on a higher level of consciousness. Healing isn't linear, it spirals, deeper, then upward. The spiral draws us inward and lifts us beyond. It's not just a symbol, it's a sacred motion. A reminder that the journey isn't straight. It curves, it folds, it returns, until it transcends. And maybe that's why the spiral shows up in nature, myth and soul alike, because it's not just a path we follow, it's who we are becoming. Carl Jung didn't just study myths, he listened to them. He believed that the stories, symbols, and sacred patterns found across cultures weren't relics of the past, but expressions of something alive within us, the unconscious. In his work, Jung noticed a curious phenomenon. Patients undergoing deep psychological transformation would often draw intricate geometric patterns without knowing their meaning. Mandalas, spirals, crosses, labyrinths. These weren't random doodles, they were archetypal images, spontaneous expressions of the psyche seeking order and wholeness. To Jung, the mandala became a central symbol of the self, the totality of who we are, both conscious and unconscious, striving for integration. The center of the mandala was the innermost truth. The outer rings represented layers of experience, wounds, defenses, all revolving around a sacred core. He saw parallels in the yantras of India, the rose windows of cathedrals, the diagrams of alchemy. All pointed to the same idea, that the path to healing is not linear, it's circular, layered, geometric, a spiral that returns again and again, each time deeper, clearer, more whole. Jung called this process individuation, becoming who you truly are by embracing your inner opposites, your shadow, your divine spark. And sacred geometry, in all its forms, wasn't just symbolic of that path. It was the path. The same shapes that structure the universe, he believed, also structure the human soul. Myth, form, psyche, all speak the same language if we know how to listen. There's a strange pattern woven through the ancient world, a pattern of patterns. The same symbols, shapes, and proportions appear again and again across continents and civilizations that supposedly never met. The flower of life in Egypt, mandalas in Tibet, spirals etched into Celtic stones, step pyramids in Mesoamerica, aligned with the stars, golden proportions in Greek temples and Hindu shrines. Separated by oceans, languages, and centuries, yet they spoke the same visual language. Why? Some believe it's a reflection of the collective unconscious, shared archetypes encoded in the human mind. Others say it's because all these cultures observed the same source, nature. Sacred geometry wasn't invented, it was discovered. But others go further. They suggest we're seeing remnants of a forgotten science, a cosmic code passed down from an ancient advanced civilization long lost to myth, or even something non-human. These theories echo through Hermetic texts, the Kabbalistic tree of life, the Sefer Yetzirah. Geometry is seen not just as metaphor but as the fabric of creation, vibration, form, and consciousness woven together. Look at Metatron's cube, said to contain the Platonic solids, the basic building blocks of all matter, or modern crop circles, with astonishing mathematical precision hinting at a language still being whispered from somewhere. Maybe sacred geometry isn't just symbolic, maybe it's communicative, a signature of the divine left in the structure of reality. Maybe we keep seeing the same shapes across time not because we're copying the past, but because we're remembering something ancient, something embedded not just in stone, but in us. In the final chapter, we'll bring it all together and see why these shapes might not just be echoes of myth, but the very skeleton of truth. Sacred geometry isn't just a forgotten science or a mystical curiosity. It's a memory etched into nature, into myth, into us. Circles, triangles, spirals, squares, they aren't just marks on stone or clever designs. They are the scaffolding of existence, the alphabet of reality. The ancients weren't decorating, they were encoding. They weren't telling stories, they were building maps. Maps that led not only to stars and temples, but inward, toward the self. Because maybe the divine doesn't just speak in thunder or miracles. Maybe it whispers, in symmetry, in proportion, in form. Maybe geometry is the voice of the sacred, humming through galaxies and shells, pyramids and mandalas, architecture and dreams. And if that's true, then we are not separate from the sacred. We are built from it. So when you trace these shapes across cultures, across time, across your own inner world, you're not just studying myth. You're remembering that the universe has a pattern. That pattern is alive in you, and the shapes are still speaking. This is beyond mythology.